Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zach and we're doing another VeVe Ecomi Omi video. As per usual, currently the price 0.002823 on a low, 0.002491 on a high of 0.003093. A lot more range, honestly, we've been seeing over the past few days compared to the past few weeks, where it was really saying, honestly, the range was quite small over the past 24 hours. Having said that, in this video, we're going to be taking a look at Alfred Kahn. We actually looked at Alfred Kahn's interview, or at least part of it, earlier on, but now we're looking at a bit more of it, where Al Kahn is talking about licensing essentially and talking about all the sort of brands that he's worked on. Really interesting stuff. Let's take a listen.
Years old, so serial entrepreneur, did a great job with the cards, and so that was.
And if it's not clear already, sorry for not setting this up better, maybe because I did it in my last video, maybe not this one. Al Kahn, of course, is the head of licensing for Ecomi essentially, so any brands that we want to see really coming towards the VeVe NFT marketplace, we can thank Al Kahn to a certain extent for all of that. So that's who Al Kahn is, absolute legend in his industry.
How we got connected at that point in time. So that's a quick story, but again, as I said, I went on to start 4Kids. I got Nintendo. Then I realized, when you look at television, sometimes you see things and you wonder what's happening to them. I remember the popularity of wrestling in the late 90s, and yet there was no licensing. So I called up Vince McMahon at WCW, or that time it was WWF rather, and I got the rights to World Wrestling Federation, and I ended up getting rights to a myriad of other things. It represented James Bond. We represented all kinds of things. But one of the things that we loved was to build the brands. We loved to build the brands. So I remember there was a company called SRO Pace that was doing something called Monster Truck Racing, if you remember this, right? And Monster Truck Racing had a couple of stars. One was Bigfoot, and one was, I think, Gravedigger. And I said to them, why don't we license these trucks? Why don't we go to the licensors and ask them to pay for the truck? In exchange, we will tour the truck around the country, and we'll have merchandising rights where whatever we do is the picture of the truck, right? As opposed to a character. Well, we got every license under the sun. We got Marvel, we got Nintendo, we had this thing now, it's called Monster Jam, and it tours the country all the time. And but it's very fun because you have now these character trucks who are sort of battling each other. So that was exciting. Polly Pockets, which of course we did that. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. Matter of fact, not to brag, but what the hell? Out of the top 10 historical successes in the kids business, we have 6 of them.
Wow.
So that's not bad. Now of course, I think in the top 10 of historical referencing and everything, we're going to have 7 because we're going to have VeVe too. Be part and parcel of VeVe.
You hear that? You hear that?
So
VeVe, of course, is definitely being countering with all of that success, right? That is crazy to hear. But honestly, it's not a surprise. Al Kahn wouldn't take on this venture if he didn't believe in it.
when you're looking at these properties and you're traveling the world and finding this IP, is there something universal that you're looking for when you're assessing them? Is there sort of a checklist that you go through, or is it on a case-by-case basis?
I think what we do is we like to see if something is popular somewhere. It's very difficult to take something that is not known in any way, shape, or form, or the play pattern is not known, and then try and build that from scratch. So I always like to find something that had a little bit of success, or maybe a lot of success, maybe in a very diminutive way. So an example of that, I was reading the Wall Street Journal one day and I saw this article about a guy in Cleveland, Georgia. Cleveland, Georgia is 2 hours outside of Atlanta. It is really, a strange place. Really a strange place. And this guy was selling or adopting out dolls from a institution called Babyland General Hospital in Cleveland, Georgia. Well, I read this story and went, wait a second, I have to go see this. Flew down to see him, and he had bought an old doll hospital, like a real hospital that was from the 1880s, and put his handmade dolls in different settings in that hospital. And you get a tour with a nurse, and at the end of the time they want to know, would you like to adopt a little person from Babyland General Hospital for $500? And people were doing it. And I went, And in the middle of this whole store, they had a Cabbage Patch where the dolls' heads were coming out of the Cabbage Patch. So I asked them, what's that about? And they said, well, that's where we think babies come from. They come from cabbages. So right away, I hit on Cabbage Patch Kids. We made a deal. Trust me, it wasn't very easy to launch this thing. We made one-of-a-kind dolls. We did $1.8 billion in 3 years.
Wow.
It was pretty amazing. So we're looking for things that A, have a point of difference, B, there's some success somewhere, and also I think there's also something that maybe was done previously that we could do a little better. But there was always some connection to something. Look, VeVe is, the thing that the VeVe was so important to me was it's collectibles. It's really collectibles, but it's really, when you look at David's collection, which is, holy shit, excuse my French, but it's like unbelievable. And then you look at, how much money is spent on collectibles. And yet, so to me, looking at VeVe was, well, why can't there be another way of collecting besides the traditional way of buying a physical element? And David did a really good job, I think, on explaining the fact that, everything had gone digital at some point in time, whether it be records, whether it be albums, whether it be trading cards. There's a whole litany of digital situations. And I loved he and Dan's thought process that we're not going to make flat collectibles. We're not going to make, a two-dimensional flat collectible. We're going to do something really different in augmented reality, 3D. So I felt they had an idea. They really had an idea. And so I was really intrigued by that idea.
Yeah, right. David, I would love to see the email that you sent to Al the second time round
yeah. And I think Al goes, you come to New York, come over, see me, and we talk over. And I think there was quite a few number of, swapping email back and forward. And I think Al was going, how could you own a digital collectibles? And, popping over to New York, explaining, and I think I met up with Al a couple more times in Las Vegas. He had a huge booth at Vegas licensing, and that was really the start of it. And, we worked on a checklist, what we like, and it definitely was one of the hardest thing, I think, in licensing, to convince licensors that this digital collectible is going to take off. I think, with myself and Dan, we're definitely going to look at putting a book together, a little Netflix mini series.
Wow.
Every meeting we went, we took photos, we did a little bit of filming, we talked.
I can't wait to hear about this. And actually, this is leading into some of the parts that I want to talk about in a different video. As I said in my last video, I'm trying to segment this essentially. There are no timestamps on this interview, unfortunately. I just don't think there are. There aren't any, no. So I'm gonna separate it into separate videos. We're gonna go through pretty much all the important topics that I go through in this over the next sort of few days. This is the second video that I've made out of, wow, there's gonna be a few because we're 30 minutes in and there's an hour left. So, well, roughly an hour left. That being said, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. It's just crazy to hear like the evolution and to hear Alfred Kahn's sort of way of thinking about brands that aren't huge but also have potential, you know what I mean, and turning them into literally billion-dollar franchise. Of course, that is realistically, when you think about everything that Al Kahn has done in his career, essentially it's doing a lot of that again, but with a whole own marketplace, like the whole new expanding marketplace. It's just, I bet Al Kahn is incredibly excited about this, as we are obviously, to see him working on it. So I'm really glad with all of that. But yeah, I actually saw someone in the comments say, after hearing how Al Kahn thinks, they're buying a whole big bag of Omi even more than they already did. So that's awesome to see. Of course, not financial advice, but I'd love to hear your take. That being said, we're going to go over more of this very soon. If this video was interesting or helpful to you, like it's always very much appreciated. Make sure to subscribe to this channel if you're new. But with that being said, have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.